Okay, this is probably going to be my last video on this build, this LR-308 and 6.5 Creedmoor. As you've seen in the series, I went out and fired it, had a series of problems and hang-ups, didn't quite function 100%. So the different problems we addressed here, I'll go over them real quickly. I mentioned the gas tube a lot because I thought maybe the longer gas tube, that's not the case, and how it was proved out is I did get the gun to function properly and everything worked with factory ammunition, okay, after a little bit of break-in or shooting. And in the video section, I'm going to show you the video the second time I went out with this after I made the video addressing what I thought was wrong, trying to troubleshoot it. There were some people at the range. All I did was turn the camera on, load the rifle, try to fire it. I'm going to mute it because the people were standing right behind where I had the camera and had some kind of conversation the whole time there, so you don't hear nothing but two individuals talking. So it's going to be mute. How it went was I tried to load some of my reloads. I think I had 6 rounds in there. And I had trouble getting them to go up in. But I did get them to go off, and they wouldn't trip the bolt stop. Okay, so I know I mentioned the long gas tube, but I don't think that's a problem because the factory ammo made the gun function. But the problem is the powder I'm using, the slower burning powder, may not be the correct powder to use to get this AR style action to function with direct gas impingement. Okay. On a nice semi-sporting rifle, usually you can adjust the gas system, so if your ammunition is a little bit underpowered or something, you can adjust that. This does not have an adjustable gas system, plus it's just wide open. It either works or it doesn't. Okay, it's just a tube. I know I mentioned it several times that maybe if I had a shorter tube, maybe not. I don't know. Okay, so. But it's not the gas tube, so we eliminate that problem. It's sensitive to ammo, so that addresses one problem. Second one is the fit between the upper and lower receiver. I kind of loosen that up. It is better. You know, I can move this pin. You know, it's closer. I don't want to go too crazy with it, but I can push this pin out now with my fingers, basically. Or I was doing it. Which that could be the detent acting up too. There we go. So yes, I can get this out where before I did the sanding, I couldn't move this pin that easily. Okay. So that helped, and the bolt travel in that is a lot smoother. Doesn't have that drag. Okay. So that addressed one problem, and I believe helped. Two things that have to be replaced because of I decided they're low quality. One is the buffer. The buffer got beat up. I had to sand it. I got to change that out with something else comparable that's better quality. I have not addressed this. This is something in the future once I get a line on it to get it. Then the other thing, okay, that fit, and the little pin that retains the firing pin got all bent out of shape. I had to go put it in the vise and rebend it. Whatever material it's made out of, that steel should be a little bit more resilient. It's too weak and soft, and I don't know how it got bent. Okay, I just pulled it out and it was bent. So that's going to have to be replaced. So in the video, I fumbled with some of the reloads and that, put them in there. I was having some functioning problems. The gun would fire and eject when it did go off. Now another problem could be addressed is on these bolts, especially when you go with a lower cost one. I believe that the extractor claw is not of real high quality or shaped well, and that could be a problem too, because you see wear on some of these. I see where when it hits the cartridge it's scratching the finish off and that. which it really shouldn't do that. That should be angled and shaped in a way where it just pops over the rim, okay? And I believe that's a problem, is when you're using generic, nondescript bolts, carriers and stuff, a lot of them had that problem, and a lot of the stuff was stiff. The ejector pin was stiff, and the extractor's kind of stiff, and that's kind of a wear in. Kind of once you knock that loose a few times, get it cycling, should wear in. So you have to also take into consideration quality of those parts. I know on some of my AR builds that's what it was. When I got the really inexpensive bolts, the extractor hook thing wasn't of high quality, and that created a problem until it kind of wore in, and the springs and everything and the packing grease and that got loose, and I've washed it a few times with carburetor cleaner, and then it hit it on a few of them, and it kind of started to work where it works consistently. That is another thing to check. And then the magazines. Again, it's not with this build, but with an AR build I had. I bought a bunch of polymer magazines. I forget the brand name, but I've used them, sold them. I had a bunch of them years ago, and I've used them all pretty much with no problem. But I had one left over because when I went to test fire this, I went with an AR build, and I couldn't find an aluminum magazine right away. I wanted to get out, get to the range to do it. So I took this polymer one I found, and all kinds of problems. Fire, and the ammunition I know is good, because using the steel case Russian ammo, I test that on all my AR builds because I know it'll function. Okay, and it's not expensive, and I can shoot 20, 30 rounds just to function test. Well, I ran into problems, and that's kind of how I know I got a problem. And again, with that AR, was the bolt was not of good brand name quality. I think the ejector or extractor thing was a problem there. But what was happening is it wasn't catching the mag. You know, you'd fire the last round, it wouldn't trip the bolt stop. So when I did get home, I finally found a mag, put it in there, and I took the polymer mag, pulled it back with the op handle, let it go, and it wouldn't catch the bolt stop. I put the aluminum mag in, pulled it back, and a old used one, and it worked. So it has something to do with the polymer mag, okay? This, I believe, is another problem we haven't addressed. These mags I got are P-Mags by Magpul Corporation. They are 7.62 by 51 20-round mag, polymer. I know people, there's a difference between AR-10 mag and LR-308 mags. I don't believe this is for, 7.62 by 51, and I believe the Creedmoor body's the same, so you don't need another floor plate for reliability. You're not radically changing the diameter of the case, because I think the Creedmoor and the, say like 243 or something, if you built one like that, these magazines should work. And they kind of say it will. 308, 6.5 Creedmoor, the mags will work, and the bolts and all that other stuff, because the head of the cartridge and stuff is the same. Maybe a mag problem. Now, I don't have the time, I haven't gotten any. I would like to get one that's aluminum, and see if there's a difference, but I don't have time for that. But that may be an issue. And I don't know, because there's so many different styles, varieties. These are not that easy. They're not as commonplace, these AR-10, LR-308 mags. They're not as commonplace as like the AR-15s, where everybody and anybody makes them. There's a whole wide variety of makers, and they're not cheap. Okay, so it would kind of behoove you to do a little bit more investigation. I may, in the future, when I go work on another one of these, get an aluminum mag and do a side-by-side, see if the polymer one maybe causes a problem. Now, this is a quality mag, but doesn't mean it'll work. With your variations in components, and things not being too specific, this might have been a problem that I had. So, in the end, I got to the last part there. I think I loaded 10 or 11 rounds in there, and I believe I got it to function. You know, and then on the last round, it come back, caught the bolt, stopped, as it should. So the last sequence of firing went all right, with no problems. So I'm going to call it satisfactory and be happy with it. If this has to be worked on some more later, I will do it, but probably not have an update or videotape doing it. So that's my conclusion, and I'll take you now to the range time.